Oh my God. Oh, I made that weird. That's so great. Okay, I'm so excited to bring to you Natalie because here's the thing I have to tell you. One day in 2018, I was just perusing the internet as one does, okay? And I was getting curious about astrology, and I came across Natalie and Natalie's work in astrology. And I think at the time it was around you were offering like career sessions and stuff. And I was working for a nonprofit and just feeling like this is not it. This is not aligned with me. Even though I like the mission, like there has to be more. I felt the call to more. And so I came across Natalie and I loved her energy. And I booked in a session with her and it was life-changing. And I know that people say things like that, that it's like, oh, it's life-changing. No, but really, this gave me such clarity. And she drilled down such helpful information about why my planets are the way they are, what gifts, what strengths, things to focus on. And it was such a big deal that I transcribed our entire session, put it in my notes app, and I literally, Natalie, no joke, I look at it at least once a week to check, okay, where is my this? What energies am I playing with in this when this happens? Blah, blah, blah. And so I just have to tell you, first and foremost, I love you. I'm obsessed with you. Obviously, I've been following you since 2018. And you have also connected me to Courtney Beck, who is one of my friends and go-to healers, who has then connected me to other people. So it's just really cool to see what one light can do when they follow their heart and their passion. So I want to say, welcome, Natalie. Like, what do you do in the world? But first, where are you located?
Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me. I love hearing that story because I forget that people found Courtney for me, and I'm just like, oh, we all just know her. And I'm like, oh, you know her because of me. That's so cool. I love it. Anyway, I'm Natalie. I live in Maui, and I'm originally from Minnesota, though, where Ashley lives. And I do all the things. I have a really hard time answering that question these days, and I kind of pick and choose like which aspect I'm going to talk about. But basically, I'm an astrologer, a hypnosis practitioner specializing in quantum healing hypnosis, which is like channeling your past lives and your higher self. And I have a publishing company. Whoa, almost forgot that one.
Like low key. You're like, I play in the mystical realms. I talk to the stars. I talk to your soul. Like, this is wonderful. I wanted to bring you on today because I think, candidly, I've been following your journey for so long and I've watched you evolve in every step of the way. And you also have shared so beautifully some of the trials and tribulations that you've walked through in order to expand beyond what you're navigating, right? So I'd love to go back to astrology. What was it that pulled you there?
hmm Yeah, I had just moved to Hawaii from Minnesota, I think maybe a year before that. And the stars on the Big Island where I was living are incredible. That's where they take pictures of space. So they don't have any streetlights at night. And it's, yeah, the stars just totally had me transfixed. And I was a graphic designer at the time, and I had three clients ask me to design a moon tracker in the same month. And it was for different reasons. One of them was for charging your crystals, one of them was like tracking your cycle with the moon. And I can't even remember the other one. But it was really weird. It all happened at once. It's like it was waiting for me to awaken to it. And then I was really sick at the time, actually, and I almost died. And angels came, they asked me if I wanted to stay, and I said yes. And this is like such a long story. But basically, I like started learning astrology for fun because my life was horrible actually at the time. It was like a nightmare a little bit. Because I went there to follow my dreams and then everything fell apart. Like I was low-key homeless and like my relationship was falling apart even though we had just gotten engaged and I was super sick. I got misdiagnosed with cancer, which I didn't even have. And it was a whole situation. But at the time, so I was like reading my horoscope every day, being like, what the actual F word? Like, help. And it was the only thing that made sense in my life. It actually knew me. It knew what I was going through and it was giving me advice. And it was just a short little paragraph that just knew how to help me. So I started learning about astrology and my astrology chart, and I just kept going down the rabbit hole. And I started looking at an astrology chart and realizing I understood it on such a deep level. And I literally just started learning about it. And people kept saying, "Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard." I'm like, "No, I get it. I'm downloading everything I need to know about you instantly when I open this chart." So clearly I've had like past lives doing it. So yeah, then yeah, everything just kept falling apart. I moved back to Minnesota for a while and gave up my dream home, gave up my potential marriage that I was gonna have, everything. And I just went all in on astrology. I was literally sick in my bed every day. I couldn't eat, sleep, and yeah, illness is like a really big theme in my life. Sometimes, every once in a while, it comes back around. And yeah, then I just became a career astrologer because I found that astrology was helping me with my career as I didn't like graphic design anymore. And I felt like I wanted to go deeper than just the surface level, which is what it's like pretty, right? But I just wanted meaning and depth. And that's what my astrology chart was calling me to explore too, is like deeper spiritual stuff.
My God. Can I mean, what? Can we go back to
Yeah.
when you had a near-death experience?
Yeah.
When that happened, because I've studied near-death experiences for like 20 years, and I like to look at patterns and themes and things like
Mhm.
that because I feel like it helps a lot with death anxiety.
Mhm.
And when you see patterns, it helps you feel like, okay, if enough people have navigated this, when that happened for you, did you go through the process of like you saw black and then you saw the tunnel and you had a life review, or did you like what did the angels look like?
Yeah, it was really so I was kind of on the verge for quite a few days. Yeah, it's crazy to like think back to this moment. Like my fiance would leave for work every day and he was scared to leave me because I was just like, I don't know. I started actually seeing my past lives. It was kind of coming in and I was coming in and out. Yeah, I was just so sick. So I don't think I actually died, but it was like, do you want to? And I'm like, I felt like I didn't want to die with my magic still in me. I had literally just discovered astrology and figured out that I understood it somehow. And so I was like, okay, there's more to this story, and I don't want to go without having explored that. And yeah, and that also brought up this thirst to not let other people die with their magic still in them too. So I really went into astrology with like this crazy calling to do it. Yeah, the angels were like actually came as it was like flapping of birds first. I was up all night that night and I actually experienced myself as a star. It was a really, this is crazy. I forget about all this. So yeah, I didn't actually die, but I could have.
Right, you walked between the veil, really, is what it sounds
Hmm.
like. And you experienced yourself as a star. That is so, and then your work is in the stars.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
incredible.
I felt myself as like like planets, they're like a power source. Like the sun is a power source. So it was interesting. I still
Yeah.
don't really know how to explain it, but it happened.
And it was a trajectory for you. And I love too that like I know one of your things is the cosmic calling, right? And how that came through for you so clearly that it gave you enough life force energy to continue even though you could have exited. I just find that to be so poetic. So for you now, you were talking about how you had astrology, you were doing beautiful work with people, helping them, really discover what it is that they're aligned from a planetary and, soul perspective. But you had moved to Hawaii and then you came back to the frozen tundra of Minnesota and then you went back to Hawaii, right?
Yeah, I made
So
my way back.
how did you know that Hawaii was a place you wanted to go? Specifically because I know there are people who have this longing to go to places, but they don't allow themselves to move or to try because, well, my family needs me, XYZ, and I just would love for you to speak to how did you make that decision and what was so compelling?
Yeah, I think I've always had a calling to move from Minnesota since I was young. I think I went to Mexico with my dad when I was 15, and I was like, wait, there are other countries. Interesting. And like in that moment, I decided I was going to move to Canada. And I actually did move there to go to school for college for a few years. So I always wanted to leave. And it was actually my boyfriend who dragged me out to Hawaii. Not that I didn't want to go, but it was his idea because he's really into organic food, and organic food is like all they had. I don't know if it's true anymore, but on the Big Island, GMOs are illegal. So we wanted to go there to get healthy. And funnily enough, we both got super sick from mold. It turned out it was from mold that time as well. So yeah, so I think I just always knew I was going to leave. I'm not super close with my family. I still talk to them here and there, so I didn't have that guilt trip feeling. I don't think they're super thrilled that I don't live there and like they wish I would come back and stay secretly, but yeah, I don't have a strong pull to be
Mm.
there.
hmm It's just cool to hear, right? It's helpful for people's mirror neurons to watch someone follow their heart and then to not, die, even if you get mold poisoning and thing. You still didn't die, you,
Yeah.
you know? Oh, so you were there and then you were on the Big Island and then you moved to Maui?
So, okay, when I first moved to Hawaii, I lived on the Big Island. It's like root chakra energy. There's a volcano and it literally erupted when I was there. And it was 3 blocks from my house. So crazy root chakra, survival, all that stuff. And then I was in Minnesota for a while. I briefly moved back to Canada. I went there on a vacation and decided not to come back. And then my visa was going to be up and I had to decide where I was going to move. I went on a retreat to Hawaii. We did like yoga and meditated every day. And the message that was coming through is Hawaii is calling for you. So then I moved to Oahu, Honolulu, like big city vibe. It was a little intense. And I lived there for 5.5 years. And then I just moved to Maui a couple months ago where it's very quiet. There's wide open spaces. There's not very many people. There's just like heavenly clouds and rainbows. It's amazing.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do is I go and seek out your Instagram stories to see what you're sharing about your life because when you did move, you were sharing these beautiful scenes and I'm like, oh my God, this is literally paradise. And she led herself here, which is so incredible. But you had talked about, I remember vividly, you were in this part of your process where you were in this home, I think, and you became super sick.
Yeah, I got sick with mold again. And I actually never knew I was sick from mold the first time until I got sick from it again on Oahu. I was living in a tiny home up high in the mountains. It rains a lot more there. And it was in the walls, it was in the drain, it was in the plumbing. And I didn't know. It took me 2 years for it to slowly decompose my body. And I just slowly started to becoming allergic to everything. And then each week there was like another thing I couldn't eat and another thing I couldn't eat. And I didn't sleep and I couldn't breathe. And it was crazy. It was horrible. I was praying every day, like, please make it stop. And my angels were like, you chose this. I'm like, I wonder why. So I had to get rid of all my stuff. And it was just a complete reset. And none of the doctors believed me. My landlords didn't believe me. My friends didn't believe me. It was like, that was the hardest part. It was I was totally gaslit. But then I ran away to Maui and everything's okay now.
It was kind of like making it as hard as possible for you to stay in a place you're not supposed to stay.
Yeah, you know what I think happens a lot for me is I have a lot of spiritual awakenings, and the worse my life gets, the better it's about to get. And then I start channeling angels and goddesses and stuff like that afterward. So I think it's just like purging and clearing out like darkness and fear and attachments and stuff like that. And it's just really extreme for me for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, so casual. Like they say, light at the end of the tunnel, truly for you, in every instance it is. Do you think that incidents with mold and everything and how it pushed you to Maui, were you doing quantum hypnotherapy before or during that time?
I'd actually taken a break from it. I didn't really do much most of this year because I was sick. And yeah, I took a break from it because I needed to focus on myself because my body was going crazy. So Yeah, it was really weird because I didn't have a lot of income, but for somehow I just flowed through it all.
How did you take care of yourself? I'm really curious about that. They say, oh, self-care is so important, but I think it's helpful for people to have examples of what you did to help focus on yourself and heal yourself.
Yeah, food was a really big thing for me. So, because I could barely eat anything, so I had to really, that was probably the biggest thing. It's like I can pretty much only eat vegetables. So I had to be very like vigilant about that. And yeah, oh man, that was hard. I tried to forget about it. And I
How did
couldn't sleep. So I was just up for 3 days in a row. And then, but I still had energy. It was really weird.
how did you handle any moments of lack or scarcity when you didn't have income coming in because you were focused on yourself?
Yeah, I think I actually went through a really big crisis of faith for a while, which is crazy for me because I'm such a faithful, like hopeful, optimistic person, especially working with quantum healing hypnosis. I'm talking to people's higher selves and they're telling me we're safe, we're cared for, we're protected, we're always being held. And I didn't feel like I was. And so I did really doubt everything. And I almost didn't want to be here anymore for a while because like nothing was working out. And I was having the worst day of my life every day for days on end. But now I'm okay. But I think that I don't think I fully understand it yet, but I'm good now. So I'm like, okay, whatever, you know?
Yeah, totally flowed through it. I also had a crisis of faith. Um, but I totally know that feeling where it's like I have been faithful my entire life. I've trusted, I've surrendered, and then it's kind of like your soul's like, did you really surrender though? Do you really know what that means? Because there's still this inkling of trying to control, and your ego's like, yes, you're right. So, for you, what led you to hypnosis? What was your path from that? Because I know you were doing astrology and you were doing this stuff, but then I watched you evolve into this new modality.
Yeah, I started realizing our calling evolves, you guys. And that was happening for me too. I actually kept trying to do astrology, and the universe was like, you're growing beyond this. And I was like, but I'm so good at it. People like it when I do this. And it was like, no, there's more. So I've been having dreams that I'm planning my life before it happens since I was 18 years old. And they slowly started evolving over time to like maybe in my 20s, I was dreaming about everything before it happened. And then in my early 30s, I started realizing I was the one planning for it to happen. And I was sitting with my guides and we were discussing what my life was going to be like. And I was deciding. And I was asking for challenges and I was asking for injuries. And I was like, cut my finger right here so I'll remember blah, blah, blah. Or like make me bite my tongue so I don't say something stupid, you know? So literally asking for like to get rejected too from somebody I really like, or for my house to get sold from under me when I was renting it. Like I'm literally asking for these things because in that dream state, I can see the bigger picture. So I was having these dreams. I'm realizing that I'm tapping into my higher self. And then I realized I had been reading books for years about hypnosis. And under hypnosis, you can channel infinite wisdom, basically. You can go into the same brainwave state that psychics and mediums go into and get your own answers, even if you're not psychic. So I had a session for myself, and then I didn't even know until I had already gone through the first level of training that you're channeling your higher self when you do that. So then it gave me a way to find out more about why am I having these dreams? Why is my higher self so excited to plan things that are really gonna suck? And I'm so excited about it. Like, I'm like, yeah, make it hurt. I won't learn the lesson otherwise. And I'm so excited. Like, who is she? Can we have her chill out a bit? So when I discovered hypnosis, I was like, oh, this is my chance to actually sit down and have a real conversation. Because the dreams I was having were random, and I don't get to decide when I'm going to have it. I don't even remember them all the time. So hypnosis was a way for me to kind of do a research project. And that's what I've been doing for the last year.
Oh, that's so What? I feel like I can hear people being like, casual, Natalie. You're just planning your life and you have snippets of it and then you know it's coming, even though, like you said, it's painful. Because right now, how do we learn? We learn through contrast and we learn through pain and suffering and challenge, which is great and not so great, right? But I feel like I can hear them being like, oh, you just can connect to your guides and you can connect to your angels and all of that. So I wonder also personally for me, are you more clairvoyant, more clairaudient, more clairtangent? How do your gifts present so that you can connect so clearly?
Yeah, I think it's claircognizance. Like I just know things and also clairvoyant. Just like see things. And it's kind of in the beginning, it was terrifying actually. And I'm like, what the heck? The universe is like rising up to like everything's a sign. Oh my God. But now it's like more chill and doesn't freak me out anymore. So
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Probably because you're also like, grounded and present and, you're riding the waves of trauma and stuff. So that's fun, for
yeah,
you.
as we all are.
Yes, true. But I loved how you were talking about how your calling can evolve and how you really liked what you were doing and you felt good about it and people understood what you were doing, right? But then you were like, well, actually, there's so much more to this. And I remember because I was so lucky when Natalie came to Minnesota, she let me be one of her quantum healing hypnosis, what is the word? Like a
Guinea pigs.
yeah, I was a guinea pig, right? And so I got to go. I had always wanted to go through it because part of me was like, actually, can I go under hypnosis? And I have been learning about hypnosis for a while, but I always questioned if I was going deep enough. So first, before I, segue into that magic, can you tell me what quantum healing hypnosis is first?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it helps to just hear what the process is. You just like lay back and you get super comfortable and you listen to what is basically like a guided meditation. I like to think of it as a magical spell. And it's like this perfect sequence of words said in a particular way called a induction. And it puts you into a really deep state of hypnosis. And you just like slowly relax so much that you end up in that state between being awake and dreaming. You kind of hear about stuff like that, like Thomas Edison. He would set it up so that right when he fell asleep, he could like write something down and invent electricity, or his guides would tell him about electricity. So yeah, that's like where you are. And when you begin the process, you start seeing visions and it's kind of like a dream. But then as you go deeper into it, you realize it's like a past life and it's very detailed. And yeah, everybody sees something different. Everybody has a very different experience, but generally, that you see past lives and they have a very interesting theme that comes together by the end. When you're in it, you don't know why you're being shown certain things. And then by the end, you know exactly why. And you're like, whoa. And it's not really what maybe like what you expected to find out, but it's what your higher self most wanted you to know. So it's very deep and profound. And then by the end of the session, you're able to have like a direct conversation with your higher self, which I'll have on your behalf because you're under. So before we go into the session, I find out if there's any questions you want me to ask your higher self. And I try to figure out why you want me to ask that too. So that way, once I get the answer, I can make sure you get what you really wanted from it. So it's amazing.
It is. It is so amazing. I I vividly remember being like, "Oh hell yeah, Natalie, let's do this." And then as I was being guided under trance, I was like, "This feels so good." And everything was vivid, and I wasn't expecting it to be that, but it was like a vivid dream. And it was this knowing when you would ask me questions, the answer it felt like came up from the deepest part of me inside. And I remember seeing red sand and I remember seeing things and understanding my purpose in that lifetime. But the thing that floored me was threefold. One was when I was under and you were speaking on my higher self's behalf, my voice changed. I could literally hear it. And it was like my consciousness sat in a back seat and was listening to this conversation as this deep voice was so clear. And I'm like, Natalie gets to do this all the time. That is so amazing. So then the other two things were coming out of it. I barely remembered anything that came through. And that's how I'm like, oh man, I couldn't have been making all this stuff up because I feel like I would remember it if it was a core memory, you know? And then the third thing that I thought was also fascinating that you had let me know at the end of the process was your subconscious is basically open, you know, for the next however many hours or days. So you can ask yourself questions or pay attention to the insights that you're getting after because it's your subconscious. And the cool thing about that is your subconscious runs 95% plus of your daily habits, thoughts, behaviors. It has all of your resources when you access that state, like you said, from the brainwave state, like it's channeling, you know? And I remember sitting back and having all of these connections to things I could never make before because my consciousness was trying to control and shape it based on my beliefs and my biases. But that felt like another gift that you were giving me that I just got to expand into. It was such a magical process.
Yeah, I love to hear that because when I had my first hypnosis experience, it changed my whole life. So, of course, I wanted other people to experience it too, but it's so hard to explain. And astrology, like people know what that is now. Although when I started, it was really weird to people. And so this is kind of super weird to people, and I have to convince people like you're safe. It's okay. Because your higher self creates this container and they know exactly what you need and they know what would scare you and they know your heart and they know what you want and they know what you need. So it's always meets everybody at their level, and I never have to worry. Even people who don't believe in an afterlife have a beautiful experience, and it's just like a dream for them. It's not necessarily past lives. So it's fun for me to see where people are at too, because it meets you where you are.
Yeah. Can you tell me about your first hypnosis? I would love.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had no idea what to expect because I was reading books by Dolores Cannon. She's my teacher. Her books are crazy. Oh my goodness, so good. I highly recommend Between Death and Life if you want to, or you could just read my book, I guess too. But her book's really good too. Read it as well. And so like, but she doesn't explain the process. She just shares what she's learned through it. So I really didn't know. I just went and met up with a woman who lived 20 minutes from my house. And she was an earth angel. She was an amazing, like, fairy woman. I loved her so much. Love her currently so much. And in my session, I saw past lives. So the first one was a past life where I was a man and I was a really hard worker, but I didn't put love into my work. I was like, this is just my duty. It's what I'm here to do. And I died from a heart attack because I didn't let love out. And it turned out it was all in my head. My family wanted to love me and they cared about me. But I was like, I just got to shovel snow my whole life. The session's in my book also. And then it segued into another life where I was a woman and I was obsessed with my family because we do this thing. It's like a pendulum. We go really far in one direction and then we go really far in the other direction. And it's like each life, we're trying to find balance. So in that next life, I had to learn how to love people and care about them, but then I didn't care about myself enough because I finally found joy in giving. So then I had to learn, okay, chill with that, girlfriend. And then I saw a third lifetime, and this time I was my great great grandfather. So it kind of went like in order to where I'm at now. And in that life, I was a man, but I'm more soft. And I was obsessed with my work, but I also cared about my family. So I found a little bit more balance in that life. But the craziest part about that is after I passed away in that life, I stayed behind as a spirit and I watched over my family and I helped them with things. So you don't just see your past lives, you can see in between lives as well. And then I started channeling all my ancestors. They just all started coming in. My great grandma, who was my daughter in my past life. And then her husband came, like everyone who's died, they all just came through. They were literally in a room having tea and we were chatting for a few hours. So it was crazy. And then my higher self comes in, tells me everything I've ever needed to know. I'm just like crying the whole time. So yeah, after that, I was scared because I couldn't look in the mirror because I looked like my grandpa, my great great grandpa, because I was him. So there was a huge integration process after that, and it took me a whole year before I could train to be a practitioner because I was a bit shaken up. So I do understand why people are a little freaked out by it, but it's the coolest thing you could ever do. So
That is incredible. The thought of that. It also makes a lot of sense because, well, time isn't real and parallel realities and all of that stuff, right? Like energy exists forever. So why wouldn't you be able to tap into that wisdom and potentially see them in your face, right? You're carrying the genetics forward, right? That is so epic. My brain is like, oh my God, this is
it's like
magical.
a phone call to who you used to be, but it's a video call. And but then you can feel their emotions too. Like you can cry about stuff you were sad about in your past life.
Oh, when you were connecting with your higher self, did you see, was it energy or did you just have a knowing?
I wasn't even there. It's just my higher self is talking. Like sleeping, basically. And my higher self is like, and yeah, your voice changes. It gets slow and it's like, she will come to know when it is time. Stuff like that.
That was a thing that floored me because I had this now because I've been thinking about it a lot, right? Because I'm like, oh my God, I want Natalie to be on my podcast so I can jam with her. But that made me realize in that session with you that that pace of speaking and that depth was so clear and so true that I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like to be embodied, right? To trust what's coming through. Like I started this podcast in a really high, excited energy, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. But then the truth is, if you just slow down a little bit, more information can come through. There's more clarity of the truth and the wisdom, right? And that also coincides with a regulated nervous system, which means you're grounded and you're not freaking the hell out and stuff like that. So, in this process, as you are connecting with yourself, selves, where did the idea of starting a publishing business come through and like, please?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was really deep into doing these sessions for people, but I'm a super sensitive person and they're not all love and light people. Like we're here, like part of it is healing from trauma, right? So I started to get a string of sessions that were really painful for me, like Holocaust, people in the war. And it was just a nonstop. It was like in a row, a few in a row. And I was like, I need a break. And I started realizing I was depressed. And I'm like, that's not like me. So I kind of put it aside for a while. I went on this really big retreat to Thailand with all the other quantum healing hypnosis practitioners. And I was asking them, do you guys get depressed from this? Like, how do you clear your energy? How do you manage when you're dealing with this? And almost everyone I talked to said they love it. It's their calling. They don't get tired. One woman, she works 7 days a week. She does a session every single day. And I'm like, who are you people? So I left that feeling, oh man, I'm not sure about this, which that was hard for me because I was really excited about it. And I was reading a lot of books, and I realized that my biggest spiritual awakenings have come from books. Here I was holding space for people for 4 or 5 hours at a time, and it's very deep and there's a lot of presence put into it. I'm like, I could just write a book in my free time and I can sit in my pajamas and eat chocolate and you know so yeah, I was like books, and then I was writing a book about my sessions at the same time too. So I took a break for a while, and it was during that break that I was researching how do you publish a book. And then I was like, wait, we could do this for other people too. And so that's kind of how it all came about. I realized I need a foot in both worlds. I'm doing hypnosis again now, but I also have a foot in the physical world too. And I think that's really important for me. I kind of just like wished I could click around on a computer a little bit more and not always be in a dream. So this is kind of my way of balancing both.
I love that. And I think there's something so incredible about having something tangible that you can hold, right? That's why I think books are so special and how you can come back to them and how you can read something and then come back to it and get an entirely new meaning or piece of truth out of it because your life has progressed, you know? So, what is the book for the sessions that you led? What is that
Yeah.
called?
It's called Messages from the Higher Self, and you inspired me to write it because we were talking in your session and you said you should share these. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, a blog, a book. So, yeah, that's kind of what inspired it. And the book kind of starts with the dreams I was having and then explains why I wanted to learn about this. And then it shows the nature of the higher self. As also when I sit here and I talk about how like I channel things or whatever, there was a time when like that's super weird to me and I would hear people talk about that and I'd be like, "Whoa, how are you doing this?" And the way that I'm doing this is because of the books I've read, because they expand your perspective of what is possible. And they also kind of reduce your barriers of fear and insecurities. I feel like that's what it takes to channel. It's like you need to be a receiver, so you can't let your fears and your BS get in the way. And that's like how, like the more crazy books I've read, the more I can channel and it doesn't seem scary or weird to me. And because if it seems scary to you, it's probably not going to happen as much. Like they don't want to freak you out, but sometimes they have to to like
Right.
freak you out of stuff.
And I think too, part of it, I wish more people would know. So maybe those who hear this and resonate with it, it's you cannot perceive what you're not the vibration of, right? So if you are perceiving something scary, it's actually potentially something presenting as like a costume for you to accept and love. And I mean, that's even the darkness wants to be loved. They just don't know, right? So it's an aspect presenting itself to you for you to really investigate why am I seeing this, right? Like, why would I attract something vibrationally to experience? Not that everyone wants to hear that because scary things do happen, but there's just a lot of healing that can happen from that place. So, I also wanted to say you have an astrology book, don't you?
Yeah, so my first book is called Find Your Cosmic Calling, a guide to discovering your life's work with astrology. And that book actually, like a publisher just emailed me one day and they said, "Do you want to write a book?" And I'm like, "I already wrote it." And then they had me edit like half of it out to make it really easy for people to understand. And it's colorful and rainbow, and it's a beautiful book. But during that process, I saw sort of like the side of the publishing industry that I don't love. I think this is common for pretty much all publishing companies that are like the big ones, the traditional ones. They do kind of take advantage of you. They are doing it for the money. Like they did believe in my story and the power of my message, but they also like edited my voice out and then I had to put it back in. And I also never know what's going on with my book ever. Like I don't know what it's selling. I didn't know it gets translated into other languages. I literally just find these things. So I wanted more transparency with the publishing process. That's what made me like I knew I wanted to write a bunch more books, but I didn't want the power taken away from me and like how those books came to be. And I wanted to create a totally different experience for other authors, knowing that books have the power to change the world and that I don't have to write them all myself because like everybody has an amazing story to share that shouldn't be censored and they should feel celebrated and they should feel excited and they shouldn't have all the pressure put on them to get it out into the world too. These are all things I was having to deal with and it was really weird. I took a break from astrology for a while too, and my very last reading I did was for a woman who had been published maybe like 10 of her books and she also had a bad experience with her publisher. So I was like, oh haha, we should start our own. And then that's kind of what ended up happening too.
So casual. And now you're
Mhm.
publishing books, which is just the best. I wanted to have you be here to show people, A, you can evolve and also follow your heart and like you're going to face challenges and obstacles, but it's going to be so worth it, right? So I also candidly wanted to ask you this question because you are a published author. Have you ever had the mindset where it's like, oh, is my message worth sharing or should this even be a book? books are already written about this. Like, who am I to share this?
I don't think so, no. For me, like my books are something I'm creating because it's almost like selfish. Because when I was doing all those astrology readings, I was like, the world needs this information. And I can't just sit here on a call and repeat the same thing every day to people. There needs to be a tool that just gives it to them. And then, like, remembering that I didn't want to die with my magic still in me. I just feel like it needed to exist. And then with this book too, I'm like, this needs to exist. People need to know this. Like, knowing this information has changed my life. I wish other people knew it. I feel like an alien because they don't. So, like, let's tell them and we can just be cool aliens together and live in harmony.
Love you so much. For the Higher Self Sessions book, did you see a theme run through the entire book or from all of your sessions? Have you seen like a central theme?
Yes and no. I had a lot of trouble putting them in an order. At first, it felt like a nightmare. I was like, this book is going to take me years. Every time I sat down to look at it, I'm like, and this is going to be forever. But then all of a sudden, it just started clicking into place. And it was like, this one goes here, this one goes here. It was perfect. Like, spirit obviously helped me with that. But I do like probably the biggest things that have stood out to me from doing so many sessions is the higher self constantly saying, we are held, we are safe, we don't have to worry. And a lot of people ask about money. Almost everybody asks about money, and they're like, you're fine, it's not a big deal. We put so much focus on it, but we're always being taken care of. Like if we don't have enough money, we're not meant to. It's like almost protecting us, even to some degree. Or if like oh, too, as an astrologer, I work with a lot of really rich people and it's never enough, let me tell you. It is never enough. People are like, I have three houses. Where should I buy my fourth? I'm so stressed about it. I'm like, okay, I'll help you with that, but wow, this puts things into perspective. So, yeah, and then people also ask about psychic ability. How do you strengthen it? And I do think getting a session does help with that because you can feel what it's like to channel, and then it comes a little bit more easily for you. I think that has also helped me channel because I've had probably 5 sessions of my own, and they build and they get wider and crazier. Like I started with a past life shoveling snow, and now I'm just channeling Mother Mary and like I don't even know what I was doing in my last session. It gets crazier.
I just love that. I want to read all of your sessions. I'm just so curious. But I think too, it's it's cool to have people hear that, right? Even the money aspect, we're so hyper focused on money because it's part of the way that we live, right? But if you don't have it, there is a reason, right? And everything is divinely timed. Everything is orchestrated, even if you can't see it, which is why when you say, I see the theme of your higher self saying you're held, you're supported, but your ego is like, I'm not. And this
Yeah.
sucks and this is the worst. But it's because everything is being orchestrated for you. So it's really cool that you get to connect with people in that way. And when you were talking about your gifts and stuff, that when you were saying, yeah, when you're in it, then you can see how channeling feels. That is such a game changer because when you are held and you feel safe by someone who's guiding you, then you can naturally see how's this information coming through, right? Is it coming through vivid imagery? Is it coming through words you can hear? Is it from the depth of your being? Is it something that you're feeling on your body? And you're in a safe space with someone like you, which is so incredible. So
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, as part of your publishing process, you brought Higher Self out to the world in a hardcover on November 1st. Did you do that on purpose?
No, it was
Really?
actually late. It was supposed to come out the week before, but it printed a little too far to the right. So I was like, nope, it's not ready yet.
Only because I thought that you did it on 11/1 on purpose. Because for me, 111 is new beginnings and like align new
Mm.
beginnings. And I thought, damn, this is brilliant. And then I was like, maybe she did it for some cosmological reason or something. But even, I love that you were like, this wasn't perfect.
Yeah. It was just slightly off and I wanted it to be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be on people's shelves and people are going to come back to it over and over again. And it's a gift that you're bringing to the world. So, of course, it should be done how you wanted to. So, you also are in the process of bringing another book to the world.
Yeah.
What book is that?
We're doing a multi-author book called Soul Rising, and it's stories from 33 women sharing their spiritual awakening experience. Because I know how powerful it has been for me to share mine and for people to hear it. Even it's so scary to share, but we need people to share. We need to normalize this. It's happening to so many people. It's going to happen to all of us at some point. So I wanted to create, it is like case studies because it's like, here's what happened. Here's how spirit talked to me. Here's how I grew. Here's how I've integrated it. Here's how I'm now using these gifts. And then to hear it from people all over the world and see the patterns and the differences and just like be like, yeah, it's a thing, you guys. It's going to happen to all of us at some point. So don't be scared.
Because you've got this. Like you said, everything is pre-planned and you're working with your higher self, even if you don't know it, even if it's only in the dream state, right? Like the challenges and obstacles are presented to you on purpose for a reason, even if they suck, even if you get sick, even if you potentially almost die, you know? So
And you lose all your faith in the universe for like a month, but then you're like, oh, it's okay.
so I'm wondering, how can people work with you first and foremost?
Yeah, so I'm doing sessions. I have astrology readings. I'm doing those again because now I'm incorporating Vedic astrology. So you can see your astrology chart from your higher self's perspective and not just like the 3D, 4D career stuff. And then I also have quantum healing hypnosis sessions, of course, and those are at higherselfsessions.co. And then the publishing company, not only is it just a great resource to read the books that come out, but I also share things about raising your vibration. And then also, if you have a book you want to write, we can learn more about that at divineflow.co.
I love that. Thank you. Like, as someone who has worked with you for these different things, oh, treat yourself, okay? It's going to be worth it because you never know. You could have something you learn about yourself, or you may have access to information that you will look at every single week, okay? And it's so great that I have that because usually I forget certain parts of my chart and aspects and stuff. So it's cool that you broke it down that way. And also, I'm excited because your book is coming to my house soon, and that's really exciting. So, also, I have one more question for you. Well, I have two more, to be fair. But my question is around astrology focus. So I'm wondering, because people know the age of Aquarius, but can you tell people more about actually what that is and what that could feel like and look like?
Yeah, the funny thing about Aquarius is it's ruled by Uranus, which is the planet of unexpected change. So it's actually like when things happen with Uranus, we don't know what's going to happen. That's the whole point. The idea is it's like radical, it's unexpected. Like aviation is ruled by Uranus because it was like unheard of that you could fly in a plane. There was a time when that was insane. And people didn't even start flying to Hawaii until like the 50s. They had a race to see who could actually make it here. And now they fly all day, every day. So it's like that, but with spirituality and that with technology as well. And I feel like Aquarius is like a dual sign. So it can be like angels or it can be aliens or both. It can be technology or it can be spirituality or both. So it's kind of interesting to see which timeline we want to choose. And there's the collective timeline, but there's also our personal timeline of like, which one do we want to tap into? And I don't remember the exact like science of how the ages are calculated, but we're clearly in this already, regardless.
Oh, and it's so exciting. I am floored that our souls were like, you're gonna be incarnated at a time of huge sweeping, incredible change and revolution and rebellion. And you're going to get access to like even more galactic wisdom. And you're going to learn you are connected to these beings on purpose. And they're probably part of your family and part of your soul mission, or unless people want to leave the planet, which that's also going to happen, right? As Gaia raises her consciousness and stuff. But it's so cool to watch you evolve again and to follow your heart and to try new modalities and to see what happens from it. And then also to anchor it in the physical, right? Like having tangible books and teaching people about themselves so that they can take aligned steps forward. So thank you for the work that you do because it's so inspiring for me to watch you be authentically you and to navigate the challenges that you do. Because man, oh man, if Natalie can do all of these things and she's still kicking, like I think I can do it too.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing too, because before I felt like people would say, like, wow, your life is so great. How do you do it? I go into my darkness all the way. I push it to the edge. My soul takes me to the depths. So that's where the juicy stuff is. And that's like your challenges, like, yeah, let's get excited about them because it means you're gonna embrace so much more light afterwards.
So much more. That's just that in and of itself, if people could realize if they would redefine the darkness and the shadow and the things that they're going through as gifts that they're opening, right? That is going to bring them so much wisdom and joy and aligning you to pathways you're meant to walk, which is really exciting. So, my last question for you is I ask all my guests this, but I would love to know what is alive in your heart today.
Mm. So the after I published my first book, like literally the day it came out, my whole life changed as if I was like getting ready for my next book. And this happened to me this time too. Literally the day my book came out, it was like, okay, time for your next chapter. And I'm like being called by the angels now. So I'm in a whole sabbatical, working with angels and preparing to channel the goddess for my next book, which is going to be about living in flow and like the feminine energy. So I'm excited for it, but it's like new. I already outlined the whole book a few weeks ago, but now I feel like I have to embody it first all the way. So that's what I'm experiencing.
That is beautiful. As we balance the planet, right? Masculine and feminine energies. And oh, God, I'm so excited. I'm just going to have a whole bookshelf of Natalie works. Like, this is perfect. So, where can people hang out with you? Where do you hang out the most on the socials?
Yeah, I just brought my podcast back. If you like podcasts, obviously you do. You've listened this far. Whoa. It's called Divine Flow. And I do a weekly forecast on there, and there's a book club, and who knows what else it's going to end up being. But that's a good place to check out Divine Flow podcast. I'm on Instagram at divineflow.co and on Instagram at higherselfsessions.co.
Perfect. I can't wait for people to listen to this and to sink into your magic. Thank you for sharing your story and for bringing like everything from your heart out into the world so we can experience you. I am so grateful. Thank God that I followed my heart to you in 2018 so I could meet you and experience your work. And now I'm like, holy God, I can't believe she's on my podcast. This is so fun. Thank you, Natalie. Seriously, so much.
Thank you.